first flight of the orbiter Discovery, and the shuttle has cleared the tower.
Shakety 1 2. Hey, what's going on, guys? Brad here. Welcome to Health or High Water, your favorite podcast. If it isn't yet, it's going to be. Here with a bunch of people. Bethany. What's going on, Bethany?
Hello.
Hello. And Mr. Trip Parks.
¿Cómo estás?
And Dr. Chris. What's happening? How you doing?
Hey, doing well. How are you?
Doing great. Thanks for coming out, spending your time. We appreciate it. We know you got a busy schedule.
Yeah, of course.
So we're glad to have you. We're going to have a nice conversation here. And we'll give you an introduction. It is Thursday. So, like I said, we hope you guys are having a great day out there. Trip, you want to take over the shout-outs?
Yeah, shout out to our sponsors, Gene Planet, O2 Boost, U vs. U Clothing, Health Profiling, Kalevala Labs, Adrian Bybee Coaching, Herculean Adventure, Taste Life Nutrition, Pelvic Harmony, and I think that's it.
Nice, short and sweet.
Trying to get to the point.
Yeah, let's get right to the point.
Yeah.
So you're out. So, Dr. Chris, you are a DPT, so Doctor of Physical Therapy?
Yes, correct.
Okay, and you're in, and we were just talking, you're in Arsenal Fitness.
Yes.
So,
yep. So I rent a space in Arsenal Fitness. They have a full gym that I get to use and everything like that with my athletes, but I've just got a little spot upstairs there, and
nice.
that's where I live.
Yeah, and are you doing a lot of injury? You said athletes, so what kind of work are you doing right now specifically?
Yeah, so it comes down to what is your definition of athlete, right? And so mine is anyone who wants to do more than just sit at their desk and be average. It's people who want to do stuff. It's people who want to either go to CrossFit class or go keep climbing when they're 65, 70, 80. People who want to do marathons, ultra marathons, like whatever it is out here that someone wants to do that's more than just sit down and, like I said, like fit the norm, then they're an athlete, and they're the people who come through my clinic.
Mm-hmm. It's weird when people say they're not athletes. I mean, it's everybody is an athlete in a sense. It's such a spectrum, right? Like some people may have insane athletic ability, but everybody has some, right?
Yeah, and a lot of it's just, I think it's a story that we tell ourselves, and the story that people are okay with or what they want to be okay with. I mean, I'm from the East Coast, and Trip and I found out we both are.
Yeah, Virginia.
Yeah, same.
That's right.
Same city or same town or?
So, like the Roanoke area, it's pretty like if you're like Roanoke, you go to Virginia Tech, Radford. Like that's where I went to school. Yeah. So everyone knows the area pretty well.
Interesting.
Yeah, but I don't know. Growing up over there, you don't see 80-year-olds that are still doing marathons or even going running or doing air squats outside today, like you said you saw. Right? Like,
in his driveway.
Yeah, it's just like, okay, like you get to the retirement age and then you go for a walk maybe, and you just kind of like raise your family. And then I moved out here, and it's like just so eye-opening that, like you said, everybody is an athlete if they want to do more, like they can. And I know we're all very different genetically and all that stuff, but we all have the capability to do that. And it's sad to me that looking back east, you see people tell themselves a story of like, oh, like my great-great-grandfather had back pain as soon as he turned 50, and so like that's my future, and I'm just going to retire, and just accepting all these things that people don't have to accept if they want to continue living that athletic life. It's going to look different than when they're 18, but it doesn't have to end when they turn 21.
Yeah. What was schooling like? So, Doctor of Physical Therapy is a lot of you got to do your 4 years, and then you're doing is it another 2 years and then a residency? Or?
It's 3 years.
Okay.
And Bethany can speak to this as well. So 4 years undergrad, 3 years for doctorate, and the 3 years includes different residencies or internships, as you will.
Was that all your thing all along from early on? You were like, I know I want to do this. How'd you fall into it?
No, I was going to go to school for engineering and architecture, actually. Placed into a nerdy engineering high school, went there, didn't like one of my teachers, so decided that career path wasn't for me.
That's enough to do it.
Yeah, and so was like applying to colleges, got into a great school for engineering and architecture, changed my mind last minute, decided I was going to go a very different path, went to some pre-med stuff, saw that surgeons and physicians don't actually get to talk to people.
Yeah.
And only get to solve a part of the problem. So I wanted something where I could be more involved in someone's daily life, solving the puzzle, and then went through physical therapy school, realized that traditional physical therapy also is forced from insurance or corporate life, or if you just only get to a piece of it. And I want to do something more, something like more hands-on, where if I have a session where we just chat about what are the problems you're having in your daily life right now, and we need to figure out how you reach that shelf, or how you go down the stairs, or you're going on a hiking trip in a month. Like, let's focus on that more than what you maybe traditionally would focus on, because that's what's affecting your life right now.
Yeah,
So.
there isn't really a billing code for that kind of conversation, and
No.
insurance doesn't care about that.
And it does more than most exercises that people can
Yeah,
do.
yeah.
Is that when you say billing code?
Like when you're working in the corporate PT world and you're going through someone's insurance, you have to submit the billing codes for what you did that session, and then they reimburse based on those.
Hopefully.
And yes, hopefully, unlikely sometimes.
Yeah, they have like an 8-month window that they can just deny things randomly and see what happens.
And they don't care about you getting to know your patients. They want to know what results you're getting, what you're actually doing. Yeah.
It's kind of like being a doctor too, though. Like doctors, I hear that a lot. They hate like the lack of patient time.
Yeah.
I went recently. I never go to the doctor ever, but I got sick enough where I was like, oh, I need medication.
Yeah.
And the doctor didn't even make eye contact with me the entire time. Yeah. And I was trying to figure out why. He came in, he was talking to me while he was looking at the floor. I'm like, what a weird like
tattoos. They're intimidating.
Experience. Yeah.
It's like this guy's. Yeah. So how was PT school? Do you feel like it was easy for you? Got through it fine?
Parts of it, you're having to. It's nice being in school where you're actually learning stuff you're going to use, like for the first time, right? Like you go through middle school, high school, undergrad, and a lot of courses that are required to take. But you sit there and you're like, I don't need this, or why am I doing it this way when I could do it a different way? So PT school is cool because you actually get to see the fruits of your labor, right? Like you get to see, like, I'm taking this class and it's going to help me with these clients. And then our internships were built in. So we had internships starting our very first year. So we got to see patients, and it was like, okay, now I actually get to see what I'm doing, what I'm learning, and how much I still don't know and everything. So that was really cool. On the same token, there's like classes in PT school that I knew I wasn't ever going to use, but I still had to take them at a very high level, like pediatrics. I knew I wasn't going to go into a career working with children because I don't like being on the floor. Like, I'm not super flexible. Sitting on the floor sucks. If I was supposed to be on the floor, I would have been a lot shorter than I am. But I still had to do it, right? So it was easy in some respect, but also grad school is the first time where like time management is very much on you, and you have to do it at a high level. Like undergrad, if you don't go to class, like no one's going to care, but you'll figure it out. PT school is very much like, hey, like you have to pass these classes. Like it's not like you get to, I'm going to change my major and like only like go do something. It's like, I'm paying a lot of money to go to this very professional school to come out as a doctor. So I have to take these classes even if I don't want to.
Yeah. What do you find like now? What do you find most interesting about what you're doing? Like whether it's a story or something you're just passionate about, you're like something that gets you excited.
I think the longer I'm in it, the more I realize like how much no one knows, which like is this weird like daunting cloud over you. But at the same time, it's like we've been doing things for so long in so many different ways, and people get different results from different exercises or like different amounts of cardio or anything like that, that there's no one right way. But then you look on social media and it's like, oh, this is the best exercise, or this is the best way to lose weight, or this is the best way to protect your shoulder. But the more I'm in it, the more I realize like just make shit up. Like what does that person need? And like you design something for that. There's no best way for everybody. And that's very like kind of freeing and fun that like I get to be creative every single day with my clients. And there's not many jobs in the world where you get to do that. Yeah,
I couldn't agree with you more. What do you, I mean, that I can echo that sentiment. So, cause I love the creativity too.
Yeah.
Like you said, you're making shit up, but you're doing it in a way that is constructive, where you're like, oh, this is going to work. And then you have the trial and error period. And then you're like, holy shit, that works.
Yeah.
Here, and I'm going to add it in. I love that.
Yeah.
What do you do for your workouts? What kind of stuff do you do to stay fit?
Well, I was just sick for a week, so I didn't do anything.
Oh shit! Do you have the respiratory thing?
I guess so. Like I went for a 1/4-mile walk and coughed for an hour and a half afterwards.
Oh my gosh.
But every day I try. Like so, this year, every single day I'm doing 100 air squats and 100 push-ups. That's just a yearly challenge I'm trying to do. Other than that, I'm also training for a 52-mile mountain bike ride followed by a half marathon. So my workouts are going to be changing here soon.
What's that? Is it a race?
Yeah. So
which one is it?
It's called Emerald Mountain Epic and Steamboat.
Sweet.
So Saturday will be mountain bike, Sunday will be run.
That's cool.
Yeah. So I'm excited for that. But I go through phases. I just like to play. So whether it's soccer 1 or 2 times a week, volleyball, pickleball, like I'm more of a play than like a structured workout person. But I'm trying to force myself to lift more. I'm trying to make myself do yoga twice a week because I know that's probably what I need the most.
Yeah. So you can get on the floor.
Yeah. Well, no, I still don't need to do that. But just so I can, like, I don't know. That's what I don't want to do, so I know it's probably what I need to do.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So.
Wait, how tall are you? You said you were tall.
I'm like 6'2".
You're sitting down. He's sitting down right now, so I can't tell.
For the listeners.
And somebody called me short the other day.
Oh,
5'10", and she's like, I was like, oh, that hurts. Women have high expectations these days.
Literally.
Yeah, no pun intended.
So you've been trying to lift more, you said, and more yoga stuff you don't want to do.
Yeah, for sure.
That helps you program with your athletes. Talk a little bit about your athletes. You mentioned, we talked about athletes. Do you have any like Olympians or any people in like college sports or like have you gone into any of that realm yet?
Yeah, I've had people from professional soccer players to NFL players. I don't get a lot of them that come through, but I have worked with them in the past. But it's no different. Like a lot of people, even at very, very high levels, don't know that much about how to take care of their bodies, which you'd be surprised.
Totally.
They get really bad information from people who maybe just made it further because of a connection they had or like a certain like giant clinic or hospital system pays for advertising for their team. So they trust that system, and those people are trying to either keep them on the field and not worried about what the long-term health effects are and things like that. But yeah, so I've seen kind of the gambit. Everyone from the person who wants to do their first 5K to someone who's trying to get their next multi-million-dollar contract.
I love
Nice.
that. So tell me about I've been a personal trainer for a long time and baseball instructor too.
Yeah.
So I know as you get to train enough, you start to kind of find specialties.
Yeah.
You start to kind of find like, oh, I'm really good at this. I found shoulders were a pretty common injury in baseball and elbows and
Checks out.
So with you, tell a little bit about like as you've done it and you start to get into what you're doing. What do you find yourself specializing in? What do you find yourself like? Man, I'm getting really good at this, or like I feel like I have a knowledge that other people I don't quite have.
Yeah. I think it's for like people who don't specialize, right? So I talk about like I like to play soccer, volleyball, pickleball, mountain biking, like a little bit of everything. And I think people are so used to specializing in one sport, and they might do that for their entire lives. And then they become an adult and they're like, oh, I actually want to do something completely different. But I think having the access of knowledge for so many different sports at a certain level allows me to, like we talk about making stuff up or designing things personally, I should say.
I like to make it up.
Yeah. But I know enough about so many different things at a like decently high level that people who are starting something new or are multiple sport athletes or like Spartan race folks that like they're not just runners and don't just need to be strong. They need to have a little bit of components of a bunch of different things. I think that's kind of my bread and butter, just because that's where I live, is that there's no one way and you're not doing one thing. And even if you are doing one thing, like there's a lot of different things that go into it. It's not just here's the book for baseball athletes and like you have a baseball shoulder, so we're only gonna do baseball stuff.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I got it. What's the most common? So now that it sounds like, from what you just said, the breadth of your information is sort of like one of your specialties is like just having a ton of knowledge on different topics, which is great because that allows you, you're going to have access to study those as you continue. What's the most common dysfunction you've seen in people? It can be anything from nutritional disordered eating, or it could be shoulder injuries, whatever it is, something you see people coming in, and man, every person I see has this.
Expectations. Like problems with expectations of what they think is going to solve their problem versus what they want to do versus what they're actually doing, right? I think people they're on Instagram, they're on TikTok, they're on that stuff, and they see these exercises and they see folks that are older than them, younger than them, the same as them, doing certain things. Like, oh, like I should be able to do that. It's like, okay, but you've never done that before. Like, you've never ever done anything that looks like that before. But if you want to do that, like, here's the path to get there, and it's not a 6-week sprint to get there. You're not going to do some 8-week boot camp and all of a sudden be really good at something or in like really, really good shape. Like, you might have the foundation for getting there at that point, but like setting people's expectations for you're going to do some things a lot faster, and then you're going to slow down how fast you're progressing. And people that aren't in school anymore kind of forget what that like learning curve actually looks like, especially as adults. Like people stop learning new things, and so they forget like right away, like you're gonna get really good, and then you're gonna slow down and feel like you're not going anywhere for a while.
Why do you feel like the expectations? Because I agree with you. Why do you feel like people come in with those with like such misguided is the right word, but like, you know,
inaccurate,
inaccurate, incongruent with like reality.
I think we're scared to tell ourselves the truth, and I think that people don't want to hear bad news. And so you have a lot of healthcare professionals or a lot of people that just say what people want to hear, right? Yeah. Because they're worried that, oh, they're going to leave me a bad review, or they're going to go pay someone else to go do this, and I need to build my business and make more money and all this stuff. And they don't want to hear the fact that it's going to take a while. They don't want to hear the fact that like they were doing things wrong before because they've had, I don't know, we live in a world like you get in your echo chamber and you get hyped up forever. Yeah. And people just don't want to hear bad news and aren't used to hearing constructive criticism even, right? Like it's just, oh, you're a hater, or like you're shaming somebody if you tell someone, hey, you're not good at that. Like you're not good at it. Like, and if you think you're good at it, you're wrong. But I commend you for trying something new. Like those are two different things. Saying, hey, keep trying. Like I'm happy you're trying something versus, oh, you're really good at it. Like keep doing it.
Yeah.
Well, and to add too, I think a lot of people are looking up information on social media and whatnot, coming in to people, you know, experts in their field, and be like, well, this is the way everyone else does it. Yeah. It's like, where are you getting your information from? Social media. And we live in this like extremist kind of world of, you know, one day egg yolks are healthy, and then egg whites are healthy, and there's no balance. How do you when people come with that kind of information, how do you talk to them? You know, like
start out by really telling them like, hey, we're gonna try stuff. Like there's no perfect book. I wish there was this pamphlet I could open up and say, okay, this is how you're gonna progress, and we're gonna do this every single week, and it's gonna feel good. Like having that conversation of we're gonna try something, and you're gonna be able to text me, you're gonna be able to call me, you're gonna be able to check in, and by next week you're going to show up with more data points of it's either working, it's working well, or it's working slowly, or it's not working at all. But we're not going to know until your body reacts, because how your body reacts is going to be different than how somebody else's body reacts, and the emotional response that you have to whether it be exercises or pain or anything like that is different than I don't know what experiences you've had in the past that are going to affect how you're getting better now, but it's all going to be trial and error. And like our goal is for a net progress of positive, but there's going to be setbacks. You're going to feel really good one day, and you're going to do way too much, and then you're going to feel like shit for like 3 days. And we're okay, like now you know your line, and we build from there. But there's going to be ups and downs, and like just not hiding that from people.
Yeah.
Absolutely love that.
Trip, just a short break here. Do you have a session coming up in a minute?
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to keep rolling if you don't mind. I don't want to hog everything, Bethany. Why don't you jump in? Do you have any questions?
Yeah. Do you see more of those inaccurate expectations from sports team-related players? Because I know I have, like, they want to get back to the sport in 2 weeks after an ankle injury or something. Yeah. And how do you manage those?
Yeah. It's sometimes for sport related stuff. A lot of times it's from parents, and a lot of times it's from runners. Like we live in Colorado where people are always signed up for something over the summer,
Yeah.
and or they just bought a ski pass and they want to be able to still ski this season, right? So there's always some sort of deadline. So I wouldn't say it's necessarily more for sports teams for me, but at the same time, it's like you have the conversation, like, what is your goal? Are you a sophomore and you have 2 or 3 more years to like really prove yourself before you go to college? Because getting you better now looks different than are you a senior and you're just like trying to like make one last push for your senior season. Like one way we can push a little bit harder and you know the risk, but you know the risk. We tell you the risk. We talk about the risk.
Yeah.
And the other one's like, hey, let's be more conservative, like with your future more in mind. Just like you have to meet the people where they're at, which is, again, becoming okay having tough conversations and realizing like I'm about to tell someone that, like something they don't want to hear.
Right.
But they either are going to accept that or they're going to go somewhere else. And if they go somewhere else, that's probably not the ideal client for me anyway, because I don't want to work with people who don't get new information and change their view.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense.
What would be an example of like new information? You mean like, you're not going to achieve your goal in 3 months like you want to, but it's going to take 2 years. Is that like an example?
Yeah. Or if you have a kid who's going to be a starter on a team, right?
Yeah.
And it's, hey, like you're not going to be back at 100%. So you might not be starting, but you might be able to start getting 15, 20 minutes of play time in a match. And that might be the first half of the season. And then we'll see where you're at from there.
Yeah.
But you can't go in expecting to have the same, like, I'm going to be starting, like the starting striker on a soccer team all season long, because that's not realistic anymore. What's realistic is we're going to have you back by the time like division round starts for playoffs, and like because that's the important part of your season.
That is such a tough to be in that position to tell somebody that.
It's not fun.
That is.
Especially when you have different like parent dynamics, and if the parent is pushing for the kid to go harder than they should, that can be really tough too.
Parents, coaches.
Yeah.
And it's especially if they're a very high level athlete when like their team's depending on them, and like you essentially have to change the expectations for the entire team.
Yeah.
And there's X amount of other kids that don't understand that.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I had I was pitching. This was a long time ago. Back in college, we had our first spring game, college baseball. Yeah. And I was pitching. I was feeling really good, and I was throwing really hard. And I heard pop in my elbow. I mean, I knew. And I threw another practice pitch to see if and I was like, yeah, I can't throw it all. Totally just completely torn. And my coach played professional baseball, and he's like, well, is it hurt or is it not? And I was like, Coach, I can't throw. And he's like, okay. And then he's like, well, you're still hitting. And so I hit, and my arm was sore for the next like 6 months, 7 months.
Yeah.
I rehabbed it myself. Like he didn't tell me anything. But it's just like this was 12 years ago, and as an example, like you hurt yourself, and you're just sometimes you're just out there, and like nobody tells you anything.
No.
Yeah, I mean, that's a bit of how I ended up in this world. Like I messed up my ankle my junior year of high school. And got an x-ray, and before the x-ray results came back, they told me, hey, you're probably not going to play this season. Like in junior year, when you're in high school, it's like that's when you make a push to like try to get noticed by colleges, right? And so they say, okay, you're going to be out for the season. So big year on varsity was done in my head, and then x-ray came back and like, hey, you don't have a break somehow. Like your ankle's 3 times the size it should be, but nothing's broken. I was
everything's
like, well,
fine.
I eat a lot of Oreos and drink a lot of milk, so I got great bones.
You're welcome.
Yeah, so I was able to come back at the very, very end of the season, but like for 6 weeks, it was like I went to the trainer at school, and he said, okay, put your foot in an ice bucket and then put it in the heat whirlpool and go back and forth. And I was like, okay, when can I do like stand on it or do some sort of exercise? And he's like, yeah, I don't know. Like, we're going to have to wait till you check in with someone again. I was like,